CMAC, time to look at what happens when supply and demand come together. If you remember from last time, demand is the amount of a good consumers are willing to buy at any given price. When we talk about demand, we graph price and quantity. I want to know when the price goes up, what happens to the quantity of a good that is sold. So if the price of something increases, what we find is that the quantity sold decreases. Think about our example of when the price of gas goes up. You're less excited about buying it. You're still going to buy some, but not nearly as much as you would when the price was cheaper. And then also remember we talked about supply. For supply, what we're saying is the amount of a good firms are willing to offer in the market at any given price. So remember, the business incentive is to make money. If the price of something goes up, the quantity that I'm willing to sell is really going to go up as well because I want to make money. If I'm not going to be able to pull in as big of a price, I'm going to be less excited about offering that to the market. So for today, we have to start talking about equilibrium. Equilibrium is what happens when we put supply and demand on the same graph. This is more like the real world, right? Because in the marketplace, businesses are going to offer things for sale, and people are going to go out and try to buy them. If businesses set the price too high, no one wants them. If businesses set the price too low, we're going to have some problems. So what we see in a graph where we have them both is a place where they cross over. This is what we call equilibrium. It is where the quantity supplied and the quantity demanded come together. So our equilibrium quantity will be shown on the horizontal axis. In this case, we are selling 5. Our equilibrium price will be sold on the vertical axis. In this case, we're selling it for $3. This is sometimes also called the market clearing price, the price at which every single thing that I set out for sale will be sold. Now, equilibrium is fairly rare because if you think about an equilibrium situation, I would show up, I'd put things for sale, and exactly at the end of the day, the last one would sell. Imagine walking into a Target and people come and people go during the course of the day, and the last customer to walk in the door wants a pair of Argyle socks, a green toothbrush, and a gallon of milk. And the only things left in Target are precisely what was on that person's list. That would be exactly at equilibrium, but only for that Target store. It's not going to happen. Businesses are going to do their best to get close to an equilibrium, but oftentimes they're going to have extra in stock, or maybe if they're really popular, they're going to run out of stuff before the end of a sales day. There's almost always going to be people who walk away with demands that weren't met, or supply that's left over at the rest of the day. So equilibrium tends to hover around this market clearing price. We're always going to be a little bit higher or a little bit lower than exactly being at that equilibrium, but that's our target mark for both suppliers and demanders in these markets. So if the market price is set above an equilibrium rate, so in our example, remember the equilibrium price was $3. At $3, we were going to sell 5 of this item. Well, what we know is that if we set the price at 7, well, we're going to have some problems because the amount of this item demanded is only going to be 2.5. But the businesses are really excited about a high price, and so the amount of things that they want to supply is going to be quite high. So we have a market imbalance. What we call this is a surplus or excess supply. How do you fix this? You got to drop the price back down. Think about Christmas decorations. Christmas decorations are going to be on sale, but what is the value of a Christmas decoration the day after Christmas or 3 days after Christmas? What always happens is businesses put them on sale. Businesses drop the price to try and get consumers to buy the products so they don't have to worry about disposing of the products, storing them until next year. You can simply fix this by editing your price. Exactly the same way we can talk about what happens when the market price is below equilibrium price. In this case, the equilibrium price is $3, but what happens if we set a price at $1? What we have is called a shortage. So a shortage is excess demand. You're going to have a whole lot of people who want to buy this product, but not a lot of businesses who are really excited about supplying it to the market. How do I fix this in the short run? I'm going to go ahead and raise my price to a place that's a little more comfortable for the market. It gives the business time to catch up and make more supply to put it in their stores to try and meet that demand of the consumers that is out there and is unmet by the current situation. We do tend towards equilibrium. So businesses and consumers are going to edit their activities to try and reach that equilibrium point, whether they realize it or not. Well, that's all well and good, but just like we talked about yesterday with changes in supply and changes in demand, if something changes in the world, you gotta change the whole graph. So as a quick review, things that shift demand. We have substitutes, consumer income, remember normal versus inferior goods that we talked about, changes to consumer taste, changes in expectations, and changes in the number of consumers either increasing or decreasing. Remember, we also said excess demand is shortage. I'm going to fix that by producing more of a product as quickly as I can. But you have to keep in mind certain things like search costs. Search costs are the financial and opportunity costs consumers pay when searching for a good or service. If you go out and try to find a gift for the perfect gift for someone for Christmas, what if it takes you 3 days of shopping? That's a lot of time and energy and gas expended in finding the perfect present. Maybe it's worth it, or maybe a gift that you found on day one that was okay would have been fine and you had 2 more days to do other things that you wanted to do. The other thing we have to deal with is a fall in demand. When the demand falls, suppliers respond by cutting prices and to finding a new market equilibrium. As a quick reminder of shifts in supply, things that shift supply are cost of inputs, technology, changes to future expectations. Sometimes simply the global economy. What's the trade environment like? Productivity and motivation are really important. Number of suppliers and government subsidies and government taxes. Remember, those excess supplies are called surpluses. We're going to fix that by reducing the prices so I can sell off my extra products. And lastly, remember a fall in supply. If a supply is decreased, producers are going to raise prices to try and conserve the products that they have to sell them to the customers who actually want them. Well, we have to start talking about what this looks like on a graph. So in the left-hand graph over here, what you see is a market that was at equilibrium at this point. Well, with an increase in demand, let's say we find out that this is the market for broccoli, and there's a study that comes out that if you eat broccoli every single day, your SAT score will double. Well, what's going to happen out there in the world? People are going to want to go and eat broccoli. So you're going to see a shift in demand from D1, this original line, to D2, a new line. Well, now that we have supply on the same graph, what you're going to see is a new equilibrium price and quantity because of the change in the marketplace. So broccoli doubles your SAT score. What you're going to see is a huge increase in the quantity of people who want to purchase it. And what that's going to do is raise the price for everyone in the marketplace because of the change in that market. Same thing happens when you decrease demand. The whole shebang is going to change. So if I show a huge decrease in demand, I'm going to shift to the left, and you're going to see a decrease in price and decrease in quantity at my new equilibrium space. If I have a shift in supply, you're going to see a new equilibrium as well. So let's take the left-hand graph again. Let's say that the University of Idaho comes up with a new fertilizer that allows producers to grow more potatoes per acre. Well, with a higher supply of potatoes in the market, what's going to happen? You're going to see a shift of supply from the S1 to S2. With demand on the graph, you're going to see a change in your equilibrium from this original equilibrium place. The price is going to fall as producers are trying to get rid of all those extra potatoes, and the quantity is going to rise as demanders, those consumers, are going to come into the marketplace and want those now cheaper potatoes. Same thing is going to happen with an increase in supply as decrease in supply. On the right-hand side, we show a decrease in supply. Let's say there's a drought and you can't grow as many potatoes. With a decreased supply from S1 to S2, you'll see a smaller quantity sold, but a higher price point as we try to satisfy the market. The biggest thing to understand is that shifts in supply and demand are not necessarily up and down, but they're right and left. If you'll notice the left-hand side graph over here, when supply shifts to the right, that is an increase in supply. On this other graph, when supply shifts to the left, that is a decrease in supply. So if you set up or down, you would be wrong in this case. Well, what if more than one thing changes at the same time? Oh dear, here we go. Well, let's say, for example, the Winter Olympics has increased the popularity of snowboarding, and at the same time, more companies have begun to produce snowboards because they expected this to happen. Well, what's going to happen in the market for snowboards? What you're going to see is you're going to see increasing popularity of snowboarding. That's going to be an increase in demand, so you'll have a new demand line. But companies producing more snowboards is going to be an increase in supply. So I'm going to have this new equilibrium point, but the question is, how do I figure out where that point gets put on the graph? Well, part of this depends on how I draw my graph. In this case, they've drawn this really pleasing graph where both shifts are very similar, so it looks kind of like a diamond shape in the middle. But what if I had a change here where my demand was a really big increase and my new demand line came all the way out here? Well, if that happens, what I'm going to see is my new demand line and new supply line might come over here. At the same time, I can't always predict what's going to happen for price. In this case, the only thing I can conclude is that without question, I'm going to see an increase in the quantity of products sold because more people want them and there are more products for sale. So, when demand and supply both increase, the change in equilibrium price is ambiguous, but the equilibrium quantity will definitely increase. As I go to my next question, let's say a decrease in demand for disco music has happened at the same time that there are less artists choosing to make disco music. So you're having a decrease in demand and a decrease in supply at the same time. When they both decrease, it's going to be the same sort of thing we just talked about. Depending on how you draw the lines, the price could go up or down. But I know without question that when demand and supply decrease, the change in equilibrium price is ambiguous, but equilibrium quantity will definitely decrease. No matter how I draw these lines, I'm going to be selling less of that product because nobody's into disco. For my next example, let's say there's an increase in demand for wheat, but there's a decrease in the wheat crop because there's some sort of natural disaster. There's a drought. So now I've got an increase in demand, but a decrease in supply. What this is going to look like on my graph is demand will shift to the right, supply will shift to the left. And I end up with this new equilibrium point that is at a higher price than I was currently at. Depending on how I draw this, let's say again, what if my demand was really big for a change and this became my new equilibrium point? Or what if my supply decrease was really big and this became my new equilibrium point? What I know is that no matter how I draw it, the equilibrium price will rise. So when demand increases and supply decreases, equilibrium price definitely increases. Quantity will be ambiguous as to where it's going to go. For your last version of this, there's a decrease in demand for rap music coupled with an increase in the number of artists thinking that they're pretty talented and wanting to put out rap albums. What you're going to see here is a decrease in demand but an increase in supply. So my original equilibrium will now become a new equilibrium point. And what I'm going to say is when demand decreases and supply increases, the equilibrium price definitely decreases, but quantity is ambiguous. No matter how I draw this, my new equilibrium point will be lower than my original one as price, but it may jump back and forth around on quantity depending on how many rap artists think that they have talent or how few people want to purchase that rap music. Hope this helped. Let me know if you run into any questions.